Hello everyone. I'm getting a warning. Let me find out what my warning is saying. Please configure both primary and backup streams correctly. The comparison of the streams failed because one of the streams has an invalid configuration. I don't even know that I have a primary and a backup stream. Oh well. Let's just hope that's not a problem. Fingers crossed. Anyway, Bitcoin and Ether, I just had a quick look at those as I got back. Excuse me, smoking. Just got back from the gym, you know, got to replenish the nicotine. But the whole point of being on camera in the stream is that hopefully I'm not going to smoke so much. So that's the plan. Anyway, okay, so Bitcoin and Ether. So Bitcoin, we didn't get the fuckery, but we did get the rejection of the 12-hour supply that I pointed out in the earlier video, if you watched that. So I thought we might get some fuckery taking out the stops above this trend line into this hourly. It might still happen, but obviously hasn't happened today. Quite a clean rejection off the 12-hour. Where are we? 3 hours to go on in the new 4-hour candle. So a while we just put in a new hourly. A significant close below there on the hourly. Where are we? Just see what bottom gets put in. Let me just see if I can delete some lines. Yeah, that one's gone. This one might be an 8-hour resistance level if it retests there. Okay, and potential 4-hour if we stay down here for the next 3 hours, which is a while away. Okay. I haven't really put much in, I mean, since the update I did earlier, sorry, 2 days ago. My cigarette's gone out. Still looking for entries down here if we get there, and or something new on these on the lower time frames, but looking for that CME gap to close at a minimum, and potentially bouncing in this 4 or 12-hour, but ideally back down in the 2-day or any of that consolidation below that it may or may not take stops from. But the scalp from earlier was solid, so hopefully you got that. Ether, basically much the same. Let's just update some of the levels on this. This just had a clean rejection off the 4-hour again, which I'm pretty sure I pointed out in the video earlier today. It's also now made an 8-hour there. I don't love the leaving stops behind above, but as I've commented previously, when price does start to drop, it will quite happily not go back for stops. Oh, I don't know what happened there. So, there is an hourly up there actually. That's kind of what I ideally wanted tested on Ether, and it didn't get there. Not quite. So potential rejection level there, and so yeah, just actually pretty clean and easy rejections off 4-hour supply in the case of Ether and 12-hour supply in the case of Bitcoin. There obviously will be people looking for sweeps of this low and this low. I don't know if there's going to be enough stops underneath there for that to be a sweep level, because I don't think possibly on Ether we'll have that, but and on Ether hasn't even broken local 2-hour, I think that's 2-hour demand yet. So Ether we could get a bounce off that 2450 level and sweep the lows there, but I'm less inclined to think that about Bitcoin, and obviously if Bitcoin drops then Ether's going to drop too. Anyway, this is not a stream for Bitcoin and Ether, so you can see I don't even really smoke the cigarette, I just like having it in my hand. What else? These 2 hour supplies will be nice shorts as well if they confirm, but they've got another hour to confirm. But yeah, that would be your local re-entry if we don't swing fail the lows, because if we swing fail the lows, then it's very likely. Actually, it looks like Bitcoin has. Hold on, let me check that. That is 41,656 and the low is 41,650, so we have got to take the stops off the lows there. But let's just see what kind of buyback we get then and whether we can confirm these daily supplies. And let's also have a look at Bitcoin, whether it's taken stops on other exchanges. So Korea is obviously miles off, but Korea, the structure was quite different. And yeah, that was the level earlier that I was looking at, and the 42k level if it swing failed that level. And Grayscale is still holding as well, so that's interesting. I read somewhere the other day that you should look at, or somebody said they would look at Coinbase, find the Coinbase chart, because they would only consider sweeps of lows if Coinbase had swept the low. So that's kind of an interesting comment. So 41,680, and we had, yeah, so it has swept that low. But again, for me, it's not necessarily a high probability long unless I see something more, i.e. a break of structure back to the upside. And ideally, probably in this case, a break of the whole consolidation. Anyway, moving on, because this is supposed to be an alts. So earlier I did separately link ADA BNB, so Matic's the only one on this layout that I haven't looked at yet. So 3 months. Let's look at the BTC chart first, because that was kind of interesting. Oh, that looks ugly. Ugly, ugly, ugly. So we had 6 month supply rejected. Well, I've got TradingView is kind of annoying sometimes that if I do it on a different device, then it will make my levels disappear and my zones and things, and then I draw them again, and then I have them twice when I go into a new device. Okay, so we've got a rejection. So we closed below. On which candle? On the mid-year candle last year. We came back into it and then have been going down since then. But this, obviously we had this decent bounce, but it hasn't held. However, again, we do have this swing fail of the low, so it's interesting to watch from that perspective. But when I look at the monthly chart, 3 monthly chart, there's definitely not much to write home about at the moment, other than potentially being at range lows. So we had a 3 week supply. So in what's happened in the last 6 months or so, it's just sideways really. We had a 3 week supply made, a week one, it came back up in high into it, but didn't hasn't closed back below on the 3 week yet. 2 week and 2 week and weekly are looking just slightly more ropey again now. It's just still a bit choppy on this. But there's nothing for me to long in there. There's no, I mean, other than the swing failure. So if you're a trader of Matic, you can watch perhaps a little bit lower in here, 3 day down there. And what have we got above? That's 2 day and daily. So yeah, there's a daily that's been put in a touch higher, which is where I have that zone. But at the moment I'm fairly bearish on this, but then, you know, bearish at range lows, so keep an eye on it. But obviously people were trading range lows, it was trying to go up, it tried to go up, it's trying to go up again, but the supply is still holding it down. And then we have a new weekly supply in there. Let's see what the 2 weeks doing, so I can get rid of that 2 week. So we've got a new weekly supply here. Oh, I don't know what happened there. weekly. New weekly supply is rejecting now, so yeah, this I'm basically bearish on, but again, not wanting to short support. So from the BTC pair perspective, sorry, from the US dollar pair perspective, I think I've lost my mind a bit today. I was doing some crazy things in the gym. I don't know, maybe it's age-related crazy. Okay, so this is more interesting because we have a 6-month demand here, which we've already hit. But that I definitely need to have drawn in. So it might have already tested on the 3-month. I've got a feeling I was calling longs on this based on a 3-month retest previously. But yeah, so 6-month demand in there, if you can see with my mess. Red candle, green candle closes above, creates a support in this area. But still in 3-month supply. And again, this is just indicative of all the alts and all the other majors that I was doing yesterday, Ripple and things like that. They're just large triangles. So we've got a 3-month supply up here, which is what we're holding below at the moment. And we're just creating this range underneath. So if we start pushing up above 1.1, 1.2, and holding up in here, then great, be bullish. But at the moment, you can see from the triangle that we've come back inside it. On the log, on the linear, we're still broken out, but on the log, we're still back inside. 2-month doesn't give me anything new, and monthly doesn't give me anything new. But you can see we've got that test at the lows in the 6-month. So I need to see what structure gives me. Unfortunately, you would have hoped that that test there in the 6-month would have given us quite a lot more than it has. And I think that was why I had, well, I mean, there was a 3-week demand there anyway. And while, again, we're at the highs of the range, it was still worth looking for longs. Actually, no, I haven't had an entry in this 6-month yet. Possibly I hadn't updated it in time. But certainly worth watching. If we can hold in here for a little bit longer, and if through any length of Bitcoin dumping, then this could be a lot more bullish. But the BTC pair doesn't really support that. That's kind of the risk on this. BTC pair didn't have any 6 months demand, did it? No, it's rejecting supply. No. So yeah, the BTC pair, other than being at range low, doesn't really give me much confidence in this. But 6-month demand here is certainly worth watching. Perhaps we're going to go deeper in it. Obviously it's a large zone all the way down to here. 61 fib would be there on the log. We have hit the 61 on the linear, or just about. But log fib, maybe around this monthly flip level is where we're going to see some sort of a bounce. I don't really want to put anything in on this though, because I don't love demand and this chop and the lower time frames through here, particularly if we're going to be creating 3-week supply above, which is very possible at this stage. So I'd like to say I'm bullish on this, but right now I'm not, or at least not for a short-term buy. But I am bullish on the macro. So, but I would just like to see this retest a bit lower, perhaps into there. Maybe I'll set an alert on there, just for keeping an eye on it, because it's a decent retracement zone. But I think, yeah, just all this chop I wasn't loving through here. So I might stick with the lower one, and also because Matic's potentially inclined to wick, I'll stick with the lower one, but I just need to keep aware that we've got this 6-month in here. Let me see what else we have. Bitcoin's still dropping. Just checking we've got no chat going on as well. I should be able to see it, but if I'm ignoring you, please feel free to let me know in Telegram. So just making daily supply. So I had nice entries on here. This is pretty clean. 3-week supply, 4-hour supply inside it, then daily supply, and now we've continued. Actually, I think it might have been 2-day up there. 2-day supply there, and then there was a 3-day inside. No, that's not a 3-day. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's a 5. So like I said, yeah, okay. So we're starting to see these 5 days created and reject. Put my 5-day line in and move my 3-week line. Yeah, so that's a 5-day rejection off there. So yeah, I'm looking to see this go lower and at least down into the 6 month, deeper in the 6 month. I'm going to put an alert there. Risky alert. Just so I can keep an eye on it. 1 day to 3-day demand, risky entry, but does have 6-month demand over macro, and 61 is in this area. Check BTC pair, as this is more bearish. So I mean, this could coincide, if we did get that drop into there, that could coincide with the BTC pair taking out this low again and maybe getting into the daily or 3-day demand down here, which might be a little bit nicer for that. But let's see. What else on this? Not much more to say. Those are the 2 possible long entries I'd look at. Short entries, well, it's just a triangle, so I don't think there's anything I'd really like to short on this off the back of it, potentially coming off 6-month demand. There is a monthly up there. Up here, 1.60. Which would be worth looking at for a short if we get there. Taking a wick into that. So I'm not going to set an alert for that right now because we're too far away, but I'm going to put a cross there just so I remember it for later. And then this weekly at the top just didn't get tested. But obviously all this assumes we're going to break out of this triangle to the upside. If we start seeing that, then we can start getting more bullish, but at the moment, bearish and conscious looking at what this 6-month demand can do. Okay, so that's Matic. Like I said, ADA I already did earlier. See, why is it putting these back in? I don't know what's going on. Putting all these zones back in. These weren't here only a couple of hours ago. I actually haven't logged in on any other device since then, so I have no idea what's going on with that. Unless I'm on the wrong chart. Am I on the wrong chart? Let me just check. No, I'm on the correct chart. But it's just put all my zones and things back in. Why? Why TradingView? I hate you, and I hate you when you do that. It's intensely irritating and it wastes more of my time than I need to be wasted. I swear I did this earlier and I deleted all of these. Not even further than this morning. Yeah, that was a link anyway, we did that earlier. Won't go through all these now. BNB, same applies. Okay, that's Matic. So, and then finally on these other ones. Okay, Sol's now back in that daily demand, so just keep an eye on that for that break of the trend line that I was talking about earlier. Atom is of probably more interest than the other, and the other two. So let's again just BTC pair quickly. And some protein quickly. So Atom fairly ugly on the BTC pair. I had a 6-month supply for a retest which it hasn't got to. But again, just back at the bottom of the range. I would like to see this right at the bottom of the range. Whether I will get that, I don't know. What I do know is that we'll get to the fact that Atom US dollar also has 6-month demand like Matic. So again, I'm conscious of not wanting to short that right now, or other than, you know, if you've got in with previous entries, great, but so monthly on Atom. Obviously I was optimistic up here that we were going to get a bounce and start continuation for the high, but we did not get that. On the plus side, we haven't created a yearly supply, but anyway, there's not much to report on this. You know, it's in a range with supply above, but we're at the bottom of the range and it's not strong supply. I've got an alert up here if we are to get to the 6-month. We've taken out the monthly here, but rejected off a weekly for a swing failure just above it. So yeah, at this stage, not something I want to look for longs on in the slightest. Let's see that a little bit lower. Atom BTC pair. Okay, so nothing on the yearly, and there's that 6 months. So we did have that test on the 6 month. There was a 6 month down there that I again would have preferred it to have gone to, but it did not. So it's basically very similar to Matic. So we've got a 6 month, we have closed above, we're testing the 6 month, but we're still in 3 month supply and still just basically in a triangle and a range. I think I should have the 6 months drawn in on this already. Yep. Do not know why I didn't have it drawn on Matic, or maybe TradingView deleted it. But again, back into that sort of triangle scenario. This again, like I say, on a high time frame, I'd be more confident of. We've come off a monthly, 2 monthly demand down here. 2 monthly demand. Decent bounce, retest, but the triangle's got a break. So while we had good entries at the lows down here, we need to see that triangle break, and we haven't as yet. So this is, yeah, very similar to Matic. Well, I think Matic, hold on, let me just check. Matic didn't have those weeklies, did it? Or is it already through the weeklies? Yeah, and so Matic did have the weeklies, but it's already pretty much through, whereas Atom is still testing those levels, but again, still got this 6 months demand. So yeah, Atom and Matic I would like to keep an eye on from a high time frame perspective through that 6 month demand. But yeah, the 5 days. So we never got, so I had this entry for a short back here, but it created a 5 day and rejected straight off it, and now it's created another 5 day and rejected straight off it. Hasn't given any weeklies for entries in there, but the 5 day has been really critical. So keep an eye on those 5 days on all your other charts if you don't normally look at 5 days like me. And that's just purely because there's been so much chop. I've had this alert on the 3 week down here for ages. Again, obviously didn't test. And why? I know there was a wick down there. Excuse me. It's down at the bottom of the wick. So fib perspective, that would be the 70 fib. The more aggressive would be the 3 day there. But those again are the macro long entries I'd be looking at. Those would be 78. Could bounce higher if it picks up the linear fib, but Again, looking for that C wave probably to take us lower, with the 5-day supply propelling it. 2-day, daily, again just a bit too much chop, so like the other charts I've looked at, got this daily demand, you know, it did try and push back up off it, but that 5-day has overruled and now we seem to be dropping more deeply. But again, there, yeah, the sort of stink bid levels are down here around the early to mid 7s, and I'm still leaving that short entry there in case it comes back, particularly if it does do some significant bounce off the 6 month, like it could just get up to here, retrace and then move later. So I think that's worth keeping in there, and beyond that then we'd be looking a lot higher, or at least, well, at this 3-day to start off with, which didn't get tested here, so I would have a short entry in there should we come up to that area, and that would sort of complete the larger range, potentially take out that high from based on how this structure is, if the triangle plays out in its favour. But yeah, so this Matic I'm probably a little bit more bullish on because of the 6 month demand. But we just got to wait for these lower time frames to play out first, and I don't think they're done yet. What else? Dot and near, okay. So near I've been heavily short biased, so we're in the 3 month supply. I had an early entry on the 2 week below that. Like a lot of these charts look similar. They had a weekly or a 2 week supply and then the monthly above. And this has gone through the 2 week and gone straight up into the monthly. Again, BTC pair. I mean, everything's like obviously well overdue for a correction. BTC pair did not create annual supply, nothing on the 6 month, 3 month obviously still all the way up there, rejecting 2 month supply. So this is a bounce I didn't expect actually, but I think the market's going in phases of TA, and I think at the moment everyone's trading sweeps and stop hunts. But to some extent I think it's a sort of ridiculous stop hunt really, because are people really holding with their stops under here from January 2021? Seems a bit dubious to me. Anyway, just quite a clean chart there on the BTC pair, looking at this zone, should it come back there for potential long, being conscious that we're coming off a 2 month and we are in a downtrend, but we've got the swing fail of the lows, so worth looking for a long. So yeah, we had that 2 week entry coinciding with that. Link's just one, sorry, Near's just one of those that again just hasn't come back for any long entries I've had, and I think, as I said earlier in earlier videos today, you need to be trading this on the lower time frames, and a lot of these alts you need to be trading on the lower time frames. The higher time frames, it's just going to take time to play out. So nothing new on the 6 month. On the 3 month, we've got a flip of that level like we see on many of the alts. And we just need to see those retests. Just make that a bold line. So 3 month demand put in there, into demand at the base, and straight up into supply. But at this point for me, it's really guessing as to what's going to play out. Yes, we've had a good strong bounce. Yes, it's taken out that, but that's a dubious final wave. But we are very much at decision point as to whether this is, you know, going to make a massive range like this, or break up from a bullish perspective, or whether that's a retest of the down move and then we get that. And the only way of knowing that is to see whether these new demands hold. So 3 months not ideal because it's got the other candle in between, but that would be the first point that we look at for a possible long entry. And bias short until then, having come off 3 month supply and 3 weekly level inside. So hence my short entries here. Macro, that would be your entry. There is a weekly in between, so hence I've alerted that as well. And then we just need to see how the markets are going to deal with any retests. Obviously, as you know, this is a bigger move on many of the alts, but a lot of people thought this was going to be the bounce and this was going to be the bounce, and you know, we had that a lot in it does not show on this chart, but in 2019, if you look at charts that had that, it's like people were longing every bounce. So while this one has had a significant move, has taken out the last down move, we still need the retest to confirm it on the higher time frame. This is looking more like it might create a weekly supply as well, but still a few days to go before that happens. Again, we had the 5-day put in, which hasn't been tested, and I did put an alert on that 5-day over and above the others. Like, while this still has very, very good buyback, there was a stronger candle coming down after the buyback than a lot of the other charts, but unfortunately that stronger candle has also meant that it's dropped sooner. We've got a 4-day in there now as well. So not alert that, but just can reject sooner. 3-day is not confirmed, but there potentially can be a 3-day in there. I'm going to delete this now because it looks like that's going to go off. Fumbling. 3-day, 2-day. So yeah, you can see the wick here has come off that as a 2-day, hence why it hasn't got back up to here. So a lot of these, you know, when you're trying to jump in and FOMO back into downtrends that have started or reversals, each low you want to break the previous low, and in this case with that big buyback we're not really seeing that, but you've got to choose, you know, all the different time frames you have. You just got to choose, you know, if it doesn't get there. So for me it's like that would be the higher probability 5-day entry there, and you've got a choice of putting your stop above the 5-day just here or just putting it above the high. But you know, maybe you could have got in on this 2-day if you'd looked at that yesterday or the day before. Your stop would have been further, your entry, you would be in, whereas obviously the trade I would have had, you're not in. Here you would have been in, but your stop would have been further away and your risk to reward would have been lower. So it's up to you, like what you choose and what entries you want to take. You know, similarly here, it's going to make a daily supply. Is that something you want to take? Like for me, it would only be something I want to take if this red candle ends up significantly bigger. You go down to the 12-hour, you can see there's a 12-hour, it's rejected, it's made a new 12-hour here. Very slow PA, it's made a new 12-hour here, which is rejected. So, you know, the lower time frames are pushing the price down at the moment, and maybe that means you miss the trade if you're waiting patiently for the 5-day above. But for me, you know, that's a higher probability entry that I want to take. If you want to scalp this on lower time frames, by all means. Similar here, you know, so we're potentially going to come back to this zone now. Are we going to get a third move off that? If we do, then that 5-day becomes somewhat less valid. But I would still look at that. But, you know, there is the possibility that we get a drop down into here again, come up to the 5-day, and then have the bigger move down from a higher time frame perspective. But yeah, those are the long entries I want to look for on this, and potentially short entry. Didn't I just put a cross there? Am I going crazy? I must be going crazy. 2 month up there should we get there. But cross that bridge when we come to it. I'd need to see. So in order to think this is going to happen, I need to see bounce on here or bounce on here and a significantly strong move off it, and or some extended consolidation which takes into account whatever supply has been made here, particularly if there's a weekly supply put in. If this does confirm into a weekly supply, I will move this entry down to the weekly. We'll need to check these all towards the end of the week. Yeah, not much more to add there. Short if we get up there, long if we get down to these two. Ideally long in confluence with this, hitting the weekly or the 2 weekly. But that's what I'll be looking for on those, but at the moment not long biased. Not until we hit another decent demand. And finally dot, which I imagine is probably going to look quite similar to near. Yeah, fairly similar. A little bit higher maybe in supply. So dot, not sure why that was sort of an entry, possible entry on the daily here. That obviously didn't work. So it's come down like right down to the base of this wick, and not taken it out entirely, but chosen to find support there. Dropped quite a lot off here. Did have an entry there actually, so that did hit on 9th of January, and just to show the potential confluence, it's probably not going to have been that easy, but gave confluence at least for a potential long in there, but not ideal. So where are we at on this high time frame? Didn't make a yearly nor a 6 month, 3 month. I'd like to have that 3 month level in there as well. 3 months obviously all the way up the top there, long way off. You know, I do think there's a fair chance that these alts will never come back in terms of the BTC pair. Doesn't mean you can't trade them, since we're trading risk to reward. So I had that long entry in there. This would be a short entry, which I'm not going to use because again might take decades to get up here. That would be where I'd be looking for shorts in confluence with the US dollar pair if it ever came up there, but in fact it's only got as far as a 3 week supply. There's no new monthly. It has come through a monthly there, but not a good one. And came off 3 week demand down the bottom here. With a 2 week just below. So just thinking about it. Need to see, so obviously we've got the initial bounce and it's obviously gone back up for the retest. This is still in the bigger picture, this is still a very small move. In order to sort of say it's going to be back bullish again, I mean unfortunately the waves just aren't that clear here. But really that's the last down move, so this 2 month monthly supply. Is it a 2 month or a monthly? I can't remember now, that is a 2 month. That's kind of where you're going to start getting more bullish, but that doesn't mean you can't be long biased until we get up there, but the lack of break of trend line is not great. But anyway, if it's something you're watching, you can watch and see if it consolidates through the 1.5 area, or if it's another test on this low here gets a secondary bounce. Yeah, there is a small daily demand down there, so it's possible that this is going to get that second move off the retest, but not a very helpful chart. And then the BTC, the US dollar pair, why do I keep calling it BTC pair? Not dissimilar to everything else. So I guess with all of these, like I really want to see them come down and test this 3 month and see what happens. Like, are we going to get aggressive bounces off the top of these 3 months, which is basically the same on every chart? Or are we going to dip much deeper inside, down to the level of this candle or down to some of the lower fibs? Or are we just going to break down because while it's a 3 month, it's internal to structure, and we're still under this monthly supply. Yeah, the US dollar pair actually kind of wanted to take out that low. There was a whole bunch of stops here if you look on the lower time frames. And I kind of was really hoping it would come down and hit that level, but again, did not. But that doesn't mean it won't. In the case of this, at least this is broken trend. But still, that is it. No, it's a second test on the monthly supply. So it has had a test and it has gone higher. So again, not yet, but when we get back to 3 week or the 3 week down here, those are areas that you can potentially start looking for long. So we just need to see like that, what kind of a correction the market's going to give us at this point. And it'll probably be helpful, like I probably need to do another stream where I look at total 3, because that really is going to dictate, you know, where these are at when total 3 hits the relevant level. But yeah, the initial entry was on that 3 week down there. Now, while we're still in demand, we're kind of drifting quite a lot through it. It came down very, very deeply, so I do at this point expect this to break. Another decent short entry that we had up there. I think, why didn't I have any other shorts? I think, yeah, I didn't have any other shorts on this due to the hit that we'd already had previously. And I don't generally like doing second test entries or alerts just blindly. So that's 3 week demand, but the fib is a bit better, a bit lower. Or is that better? Yeah, so I mean, it's close to the linear fib. I haven't done enough back testing. It's something I probably should back test more to know whether the linear fibs or the log fibs are more reliable. I mean, back in the day, I would only have ever used linear, but obviously the charts now, since the 2021 bull run, are a lot more mental. So I think people, and myself included, are more inclined to use log charts and therefore possibly more reliable. What we are saying, so did we have any 5-day on this as well, actually? So got 2 days till the 5-day closes, and it will be potentially there. So that's a level of interest if we get a 5-day confirmed close. 4-day, another 2 days till that closes, so we haven't got any confirmed entries there, but we're likely to get a 2-day closing today. So that I probably would look at for an aggressive short. So we had a daily rejection. Yeah, I think that's decent for an aggressive short on this 2-day supply here. So I'm going to set an alert for that. And put the comment, so 2-day supply, that's an aggressive short, and then possible 4-day, 5-day, depending on timing. So yeah, if that comes up and just hits it immediately, great. If not, potentially wait for the 5-day or the 4-day. To confirm. But obviously the problem with those are 5-day and 4 days, then your stop's going to be all the way up there. But that's a reasonable, if this candle closes strongly downward, then I would think that's a reasonable entry for a short. And hopefully it doesn't. And so yeah, I should probably also reiterate, these are aggressive short entries. Still aggressive. You can see how that one's worked there on there. So a lot of them are going to be just down to market timing. I mean, you saw the BNB one that I had earlier on 12 hour didn't work, and that was just unfortunate because all the others did, and I just picked the wrong one. You can see here this was in conjunction with it being a 4 or 5 day supply, but there was a 2-day supply on there, and it did reject off that. and that would be looking at that sort of similar structure developing on dot. Slight differences in the fact that this has weekly demand, whereas near didn't. So you're just weighing up the different probabilities, possibilities. And atom will also potentially create a 2-day, but because of that 6-month demand, I'm not overly confident. Dot, potentially, we're looking for that move down into the 3-month, because I don't think, no, it hasn't hit there, the 3-month level since it's actually closed. So dot potentially of interest, so that's, I think that's the only more aggressive short I put in. Near, I've still got that one on the 5-day, and then the one I spoke about earlier on Sol. And atom, a less aggressive one due to the structure. And I'll summarise these in the charts channel anyway. There will be a 2-day supply on Matic as well. But again, with the 6-month demand, I don't want to touch that. And let's see, link, I'm going to have to clean up that chart because for whatever reason everything has reappeared, which I'm intensely irritated by. But that's still at the more bullish end as well, because of the BTC pair, as I mentioned earlier. So I'd rather see this create some higher time frame supply before starting to think about shorting it. I'm more biased on the long side there. ADA could be a nice 2-day supply actually. Let's have a quick look at these and see if those had any 4 or 5 days. Okay, so we've already had a 5-day rejection there. Just going to hide that. So we had a 5-day rejection on ADA. We had a 5-day rejection on Matic, not on BNB or Link. BNB could give a nice one if we close down here, but we've got another couple of days before that happens. 4-day. Yeah, so I think the 4 days are not giving me a great deal more. Other than a bit of confirmation that it may be worth looking at some of these 2-day supplies on things. So I don't know, like no matter again what you're trading, like everything looks fairly similar. So you can at least pick the ones that look more similar. Yeah, so that's already a daily. Oh no, it's not. It is on Matic. Yeah, ADA is potentially something I'd look at for a short on that 2-day as well. I don't know why I didn't comment on that previously. Probably because it hasn't closed. And I also just want to see the reaction of this 8-hour in here. But these are all very, very scalpable at the moment, and they're generally quite reliable. And so long as you're not trying to counter. Trying to think of a good example. You can trade in both directions, as you can see on this, or on all of them. But if a zone has had multiple hits, then leave it alone. Just wait and see if the zone is going to break or not. And like yeah, I can't think of a better way to put it. But for example, here on ADA, we are in an uptrend. It has had a decent move. It's come off weekly supply, so we're short bias, but don't short too close to the start of an impulse. So if it's coming down and testing here and we've got an 8-hour demand, I'm not sure I want to be shorting right there. Like I'd rather short once I've seen the reaction, you know, because it could make a higher high off that local structure, as we've seen on Link and BNB. However, if demand is looking weaker, like on something like this, then I'd be more inclined to do an aggressive short. So DOT, for example, and NEAR, for example, I'm more inclined for aggressive shorts on those. I should probably say, just in case. If it confirms. So So yeah, for people who are unfamiliar as well, all these alerts go into my Telegram premium channel. So if you wanted to get these alerts from all alts, this is where, you know, the analysis comes in, and I can show you some examples of the recent ones. So what happens is, say the alerts come into that channel from all of these and any other alts that I've done, sometimes it comes in with a comment, but most of the time I expect people to do their own analysis and make their own judgments. So for example, you know, you'll get everything from more macro alerts on weekly, mostly at more macro, monthly, weekly, 3-day, daily, but then some smaller ones. So this one on ARB, for example, was a 30-minute alert, and obviously on a 30-minute, then you've got to know what's happened beforehand. I probably would have set this when it was here, so I wouldn't necessarily take that when it came back here, although it did in this case actually give a reaction, but then just created a whole bunch of stops which then got taken out before the bigger move down. Similarly, this 3-day alert which has just come in today, I put a 3-day and I also put a comment, but also watch 1.825 and the 12-hour inside for possible long entry, you know, if it's going to hold a retest of all-time high, assuming it's all-time high, and possible long entry, and the alert will come in for that, and then it's just a question of whoever's trading this to be watching it. You know, some work, they don't all work. A lot of the market has to be at the right point in time. You know, if Bitcoin's dumping and a whole load of longs come in, they're not going to work so well. So for example, we had BTC2 the other day, and this long alert went last night. So short worked really nicely, retest, and now down, and now where this was an alert for, let me check, 2-week demand. So obviously it's going to be a fairly large level, but again, you've got to make the judgment of how strong that demand is. Is it a strong demand? If it's pushed up and made a new high, then it's a strong demand. This hasn't. It's had a decent move from it, but it hasn't made a new high, so therefore it's sort of mid probability. There's another one coming in on fill now, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. Similar here, you know, the market's obviously been fairly bearish at the moment, so now they're not, like I put in, because everybody seems to be starting to trade these shit coins on MXC, I put in some more aggressive long entries, but the timing hasn't been good on these hitting, with Bitcoin now falling, so they're not working so well. Or we just wait and see, but obviously shorts are working a lot better. So we go through phases where the shorts work better than longs, and longs work better than shorts. But people can choose whatever alerts they want to take at any given time, and also choose how to trade them. And I will do another video basically explaining how I draw my zone. 2 videos I'm intending on doing that, to put the sort of featured videos on YouTube. One of how I draw my zones, and secondly on how to trade the alerts. And it's very much up to you and your style of trading. Yeah, a lot of people ask me that, and I think it's a very hard question to answer, because it really depends on how much you're at the screen, how much you want to be at the screen, how much capital you have, how quickly you want to make money, what your risk to reward expectations are, all that sort of stuff, how much time you have to do your own analysis, how experienced you are. There's so many different reasons. Anyway, how long have we been going for? Almost an hour. That's actually not too bad for 4 major alts. So I will put the charts in the charts channel anyway, so you can see those levels again, and you've got them sort of saved. And again, any questions, feel free to ask me in the chat.